Okay, okay, that's clear. All right, let's redo that. Can we hear me? Okay, good. Batting 100, Scarlett, today. So thank you for joining us. I have run into a taboo in talking to artists. It's almost like they want to discuss in secret with me the money side of things, because they don't want to look like in front of their peers that they're a capitalist and they're worried about things other than their precious art. And at the end of the day, we need to have that income coming in to sustain ourselves, to be able to buy supplies, to get education. Growth is really an important part of being an artist. And if you don't feel stable, you can't grow, because sustainability is first. Next. So I want to go over a little housekeeping first. If you would like to ask a question or comment, you can raise your hand or drop that in the chat. Most of you guys know this stuff from being in countless Zooms during the pandemic, but we'll take breaks as needed. Also, if you need to take a break, we understand people are humans. We just ask that you keep yourself muted unless you're speaking, let's see here. I'll see if Robin, or let's see, raising your hand. Okay, Chris will get you there. And turn off your video if you have to get up and stuff. I do like seeing faces in the audience, but I also have been the person that didn't feel camera ready. So it's what you're comfortable with joining us. And I do recommend saving the chat before the close of this session. That way you have all the text. And the session will be recorded, and you'll get a copy of that afterwards. So next, I'm utilizing my spouse here on the slides. So this is my bio, and I'm not going to read through this entire thing, but the essence of what I do is I'm a collaborator in nature. Everybody I work with and every facet of what I create is inspired by the person I'm working with. So everything is partnered together in music. My work reflects the relationship I have with my husband and the relationship we have with the LGBTQIA community, and the communities that we have fostered over the last 20 years. As a music advocate, I reflect the values that I align with people like the Arkansas Arts Council and Mid-America Arts Alliance. And as a visual artist, I create in music, but I've also done I create in with hair as far as carving and painting, to be able to reflect who that person is that I've met in my chair. Let you switch to the next. This one's going to be a short one. And this is just a simple concept of all the different spaces I'm in. The first picture is a picture of me at my Artist Inc., in which the one I took as a fellow. And now I'm a facilitator. So my hair work and some of the craft stuff that I did going into a production. Clicky. And I have found myself in some amazing places on performing. This is us in Nashville on a rooftop at a hotel. This is right on Music Row. It's an absolutely beautiful space to perform at. We were with an organization that has featured people like K-Flay and Lizzo. And I recently turned down a record deal like this morning, because all the things that they were offering to do for us, I already had in place. So I'm hoping to help each individual artist here get a little bit further in their process of how they find value in what they do, how they can move the best, who they need to bring in as team members, and how to be able to build their own little ecosystem. So next. So what does it mean to hustle? There's a lot of positive and negative connotations to that. I think the hustle culture trend that recently happened painted a lot of hustle in a bad light. For me, it is more of a way of thinking. So if we'll switch to the next one. So the toxic behavior associated with hustle culture, a lot of those you're going to find those educators that are signing you up for like, 6 payments of $894, and we'll teach you how to do this funnel marketing system. You start feeling real frantic when you're trying to be present in everything. It leads to unfinished projects. Because every day you wake up and there's a new level of something, a new social media, a new place that you're being told that you need to go into and learn how to work it. And that distracts from your ability to create what you're actually there to create. So I want to say that I'm not trying to sell you on doing these things. Because I think they're unsustainable. We all have the same amount of hours in a day, and we all need to rest, and we all need to recover, and we all need to also have time to be productive. Thank you. So a healthy hustle to me, I have rephrased some of the things that are under the definition of the word hustle, as I found in the dictionary. One of the things is do the things. How it's phrased is do the things that others are unwilling to. I think that paints things in a negative light, because if you're doing things that has an unsavory feel to it, like sweeping the floors and cleaning the toilets, and yeah, if you're out in LA, that's what that means to be able to get in the door. But for us, it's more like do the things that others have neglected. A good example of that is instead of sending an email, sitting down and doing a handwritten letter, because that is a space in which people are absent in. And when I get a handwritten letter, it's really strange. It's really hard for me to discard that. Like I run into it multiple times until finally I'm like, okay, not really. I need to clean up this space. There's no reason I'm holding on to this. But every time I run into it before I've actually discarded it, I'm thinking about that person again. I don't get that from an email. Another example of this is when we played Nashville for the first time. I recognized that a lot of people were going in and relying very heavily on digital marketing. And so we decided to go in and attend some shows and personally connect with people and hand them flyers and invite them to our show. We had 100 people show up. It absolutely floored the promoter that we were able to pull that on our first show as a band that nobody knew. But it's identifying that thing that others have neglected, and then you have a lot more space to fill up there. So we've all heard the word working smarter, harder, faster thing. If we work smarter, we appear to be working harder and faster because we're able to move more fluidly. We go back to that. We only have 24 hours in a day. So we're doing all of those together is unsustainable. But if you can find smarter ways to work, then it'll appear that you are working harder and faster than everybody. And then the last one's building your own opportunities. And that piggybacks on the first 2 steps. And it's just kind of the final evolution of it is where you start seeing a need and you go into that space and you build that. When you build something like that and you're creating your own thing, you create your own community around that, you serve people that have been neglected, and you reap really good dividends from that. Clicky click. So I'd like to say that I've been out here in the streets living as a feral cat for the first 15 years of me being an artist. I had no idea that there was grant funding. I had no idea that there were education programs that weren't just a way for me to dump a whole bunch of money and be disappointed. And I didn't have the money to invest in conferences because all my money was being taken by the bottom feeder scam artists that are out there for every artist discipline. So now I'm out here living this inside outside cat life, and I'm wanting to share that with you guys because I wish somebody had shared it with me beforehand. So, thank you, please. So this whole idea that starving artists and that it's this badge of pride, and and almost this shaming we get from society for being a artist. I want to put things into perspective if we treated other professions in this way. So I'm going to read through both of these because I think it really for them to sink in. Julianne Smith, this is like her bio. She had a bio because, if every industry had it. Smith found her love for numbers at a young age. She works in the mediums of spreadsheets and budgeting to benefit the lives of the community around her. She works for tips outside of a local coffee house. Like, it's pretty ridiculous to think that this is how we view artists. This is how we expect artists to write about what they create and how they're expected to view themselves. The second one, it's about a nurse. Matthews had a calling for healthcare. As a nurse, he touches the lives of those around him by caring for them in their most fragile states. He accepted a life of being a starving healthcare professional because he experiences emotional fulfillment from that chosen path. At the end of the day, these people spent time learning what they do for a living. They invested in it with education, and they honed their skill to do all of this. And it took hours and it took time, and it takes time out of their lives to do this. And we do the same thing as artists. We just don't qualify ourselves in a way that it's okay to ask for money. So, or at least a lot of us don't. Okay, next slide, babe. I'm not very good with technology sometimes, so I'm having Chris do the clickies for me. It just takes one more thing off of my plate. So when we're talking about financials, mindful diversification of how you receive income and the areas in which you work in leads to fiscal stability, and leads to artistic longevity. What I want to do as a creative is I want to be involved in the creative process through my entire life. My mother says when I was in diapers, I was pulling out pots and pans and I was banging around on them. And when I have dementia at 150, I plan on also banging on pots and pans. They say that thing goes into a cycle. So I want to be somewhere in the creative process along my entire journey. And if we don't have that stability there, then eventually people get burnt out and they end up quitting. Clicky, clicky. So I work with Artists Inc., which is a division of Mid-America Arts Alliance. I pretty much took this straight from them. And and yes, Robin, we have a song called that we're joking around about doing called Silence of the Lamps. But it's a very similar concept. So I took this from Artists Inc., but I want to evolve it because since I took that course in 2017, and it made such a huge impact on me. I started marinating on it and thinking about it, and I adapted it to how I live. So the basic premise is pretty easy. Your money is a rain barrel. The raindrops are the available money that you can get in the market, and then your capturing method is a funnel. So, clicky, clicky. The bootstrap method is the one that I know musicians are really familiar with. It's the performing for tips scenario. And the problem is his audience isn't prepared for him. His audience doesn't understand that there's going to be music. They may only be carrying plastic, so they may not have a way to tip him. They may not have bills of the right increment that they would feel would be adequate to tip him with. Yes, QR codes help, but the problem that we have here is he doesn't have control over the weather. He doesn't have control over who is passing by. That's controlled by many factors, including the businesses around him and the events that are happening in his area. And he doesn't have any control over noise level. So even if he has a crowd, a noisy truck can drive up and run them right off. So there's only so many little raindrops he can collect in his funnel. Click to the next one. So growing up as a classical musician, this was the dream. You end up, you're in a symphony, you have this residency concept, which means that you don't have to worry about the weather because, you know, that's an inside gig. You don't have to worry about people not being there to pay you or not being in the headspace for entertainment and music. It's all, you know, all that's taken care of. But at the end of the day, you only have one funnel, which means you're gathering all that rain into just your one funnel. If this place closes, this artist is in the same situation as the busker is in if he loses his funnel and his ability to fund himself. They're now at the point where they are in an emergency situation trying to find a way to continue to be able to pay their bills. Clicky click. So I started thinking about this, and there's three basic types of income. There's your direct sales, and that's basically you create a song, you sell a song to somebody, you create a song for somebody to use on a like TV show or in a podcast. You create a painting. Contributed is something that you end up receiving income to fund you moving, like you creating and being in art. That can be your grants, that can be a tip, that can be a donation through Patreon. And passive is something that you don't have to work towards. So if you have some prints up that are being sold, if you have, if you put your artwork on a coffee mug, then that coffee mug can sell and you don't have to do anything and money just shows up in your bank account. Another good one with that is like rental property, or if you have a savings account or stocks. Clicky click. And just to give you some ideas of some of those, I went over the artist-driven work and the donation/crowdfunding stuff, but we can also receive income for our art with commissioned work, teaching, helping educate and share your knowledge with other artists. Bartering is amazing because you can sometimes trade work with another artist. Freelance, you get hired to do something very specific for a short period of time, like only a day or a few hours. A day job, which puts you in a space pretty much every week for the same amount of time. And then partner and family is also a big contributor there. Click, click. And I'm not going to go over these in every single one of these, but these are examples of what it looks like for me as a hairdresser for my income examples that I have there. I do want to talk about on grants. There's a Sally A. Williams grant, which I have taken advantage of numerous times. Or no, I've received numerous times. There's better language. And that'll pay for half of going and taking classes and receiving education or to develop what you're working in. And it'll go up to $500 of their money. So that has been huge in me being able to go in and move my career forward. We also have an artist fellowship grant here, and we have it every year. And it just closed out. So right now what they're doing is they're reviewing these. And it's a grant for your art practice. So unlike a lot of things where it's like, I'm going and getting this specific education, here's my receipts for it, or I'm creating this project and here's my receipts for that. This is my art practice. And then they're like, oh, cool. Well, here's $5,000 to help you pay for whatever you need to pay for in your art practice, or just so you can live and continue to make art. It's really, we're seeing a movement into creating programs like this, and this is something that is very unique to Arkansas right now, that they offer this. And let's see here. So I do have a day job as a hairdresser. I'm doing that a little bit less and less at a time as things are starting to like expand out and become more focused on the music we're creating. But there's no shame in having a day job so that you're stable and you can continue moving forward. So clicky click. So this was me pre-pandemic. And I got to tell you, I thought I had it going on. Oh yeah. So that's a good point, Scarlett. So, oh yeah, I have that in Thrive and stuff. So I'll come back to that point. So pre-pandemic, I really thought I had a really good groove. I had done Artist Inc. and I had learned some, I had learned some things about adding funnels. So I had diversified and I had put all these up, and then the pandemic rolled in and we weren't gathering people. So my husband's massage business was closed. My hair services were closed. I sold retail through my hair services and his massage business. That was closed. Let's see here. Teaching in the hair industry was done because I wasn't going into salons because that's gathering of people. Promo model work was done. Event services were done. That was us going and helping with catering at events, and going and playing at venues was gone. And so was the merch we sold from that. All we had was our streaming income and our tips that we received from the streaming income. So I did some soul searching and I found more funnels, because that's what we do as artists. Clicky click. So this is overwhelming. I'm not going to read all these off. These are all the spaces I am in right now. And at first it seems like I'm going a million different directions. But I started thinking about this in a different way, and that's how I got to where I am right now. Click. So I started thinking about things in steps and in stages, and how I could grow from there. So I started thinking about a different order of things. I started thinking about contributing as a way to fund the creative process. I started thinking about direct sales as like, that's my finished product commerce. And then passive became my residuals. And thinking in that direction, I was able to go from a base out to the end pieces. So if you'll click again. So this whole concept is around getting the most juice out of the squeeze. And we went from here to here. With better tools, we're able to get everything out of that one piece of art that we've created. And click one more time. So here is the structure that I now look into. I look into it as more like a tree. So I have my base and the areas I work in. Click. So I have 3 places I work in. I have my salon and massage, I have my music, and I have my investments. And as we see, my investments are a little bit smaller, and my salon and massage are getting a little smaller, where my music is the main section of it. And through that, I'm able to populate all the things I do as they are connected. And I realize that may have looked weird with me motioning to my screen. But so I'm able to use, so if we follow through music, I'm able to use crowdfunding and grants to create the music. And then after I have the music, I'm able to move that into performances and TV and film placements. From there, that results in getting merch and getting more streaming, because the TV and film and the placements lead into more people discovering our music and making purchases or consuming content that's on virtual. But all that comes from the creation of like one collection of songs. So when we think in that direction, and we think more in the direction of how we're growing, you're able to, like, my education and advocacy is something that comes in really hand in hand with the information I learned doing grants, with my experiences and performances and being in the space. I'm able to parlay that information into my education and advocacy. So I'm taking something I've already learned and I'm finding another use for it, another way, another market, and another group of people to serve with it. Clicky click. So when we're looking at these, you're going to look at a few things that are going to help you, like the tips and tricks that I have. This is going to evolve. You're going to outgrow some stuff and you're going to grow into some other stuff. So what you end up having as a plan this year may change next year. It will definitely be different in 5 years. So as you grow into spaces, you're going to need to make room for that growth. So you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to prune away things that no longer make sense. You're going to need to explore new markets, but do that in a calculated way. Don't jump all in on something and abandon your safety net. And the road less traveled, I really like looking at spaces people aren't in, because you can move much faster in those spaces. So I want to take a moment and see if anybody has any questions. Let people wiggle if they need to. Scarlett, you usually have a question.
Yeah, actually I got plenty, but I just wanted to make sure everybody else didn't have one first.
Okay.
So when you're thinking about exploring new markets, what are some parameters you look for? Like how do you take what your skills are and then think about where they might apply? How do you find these opportunities?
So we kind of go into that a little deeper, a little later on. But the concept is that as you are moving into a space and as you're starting to learn how everybody else works in the space, if you're able to step away and look at the perspectives of the other people involved in the space, other than just the entertainers or the artists, you can you can see from the consumer's perspective things that may be missing, or things from the venue or the other collaborators you have, their space and what they're missing.
So and I a lot about space. When you're talking about space, are you talking about real physical spaces?
It depends. Sometimes it's an idea. So sometimes I'm working on a nonprofit right now that will exist in both the virtual and the physical space, but everything will be directing back to the virtual space to in turn direct them mostly to to other physical spaces. But there is room for both of those. So if it is a space in the creation of a certain type of art, or if it's in a certain type of market that's not being served, those are both viable.
Can you be too diverse?
Yes, you can be too diverse in the fact that you are working in too many directions. If you're not mindful of kind of the tree concept, and I totally came up with that while I was developing this, because it was how I was thinking. I ran into a picture of a tree. I was like, yes, that's everything has to lead into itself, or you're going to run out of hours in the day to be able to do the work that you've taken on effectively. You want to make sure if you are putting on a lot of different things that you're really just almost repackaging things a little bit to be able to do it. What's that?
Oh,
Sorry.
how do you find the confidence to pursue a lot of this? Like, I know creatives routinely will talk themselves out of applying for grants or out of trying to get into certain shows that will just literally, you have to like threaten their lives in order to get them to apply. And how do you develop that confidence to take those risks or to make those connections?
So I think a lot of that is a reduction in value that has happened from society. And I like to say the cheap people that don't like to pay us, that has reduced what being an authentic artist looks like to artists. So I think that's a big part of it. I think another big part of it is not understanding that there's what I call the good enough rule. And there's a point in which art is subjective. So, and I know all art is subjective and stuff, but there's like good art and above, and then there's like, we're still working on it art. Things that have, like in music, things that have flaws in mixing and mastering, things that have frequencies that are, that irk somebody, things that are not the right number of, like, not the right size file in photography for being put in print. There's things like that are not subjective. And after you're in that good enough category, you should go after things, because it's not your job to get the grant. It's your job to apply for the grant. It's your job to educate yourself on how to apply for the grant and show up in the spaces and make sure you have the proper education to represent yourself properly. And, let the powers that be decide if you get that funding. But it's not your job to judge if you should or should not apply and try to ask for that money. So yeah, I'm very bold. So I have ended up in a whole bunch of situations in which I was in over my head and nobody kicked me out. So I just continued to hang out and smile and be friendly. And it's amazing how they don't kick you out. And that part of that's the imposter syndrome stuff. But I guess the answer is I don't really have a good answer to that, because I don't think I live very much in that world, because I always reach for things. I didn't see myself as an artist for a little bit, but yeah. Huh?
Well, then how do you respond to rejection? Like when you are rejected, what is your takeaway from that?
Sometimes I get sad. I mean, that's honesty. Sometimes I get sad. I like money. But then I go into, my first thing is to ask why. And that's a very, very vulnerable space. And some organizations can give you notes, some of them won't. Even if they say, due to the amount of submissions we have, we are not, like, we don't give out that. Still send an email and ask, because sometimes they have so few people asking that they'll take the time to go dig that up and send it to you. Sometimes if I know somebody that got something, oh, that's great. I'm not like, I don't sit there and go, oh, they're not good. I can't believe they got it. I should have got it. Instead, I go up to them and go, hey, can I see what you sent in? Because I can compare what they sent in to what I sent in and see if I missed something let's see. Is that better? Let's see here. I'll talk and see. If I end up with a person, is that better, Scarlett? Or am I still breaking up? Let's see here. Is there a, okay. Patty says I sound good. Okay. So if one of my friends gets it, I can go and visit with them and see what they submitted. And I compare what I submitted to what they submitted. And oftentimes I misunderstood a prompt and they were looking for a different thing in that place. For example, I did a grant recently, and when I applied for it, I ended up with this. I absolutely knew how every question should be answered, but I went ahead and attended the thing because I was friends with the person that was presenting it, and I was like, I get to visit with them. So I show up, and he gets to a slide and he says, okay, so on this section, what you're going to do is he's like, you're going to fill this space up with an explanation of all the interesting things about the work that you're presenting. And you have 3 pages. So use every single line of those 3 pages over these 5 works. And I completely thought this was for me to just detail out what instruments were on the song, like in a list, and where we recorded at and when it was written. So if I had not attended that workshop, I would have missed that, and I would have missed that opportunity to sway the panel into really connecting with my work. So I find that a lot of times the first time I apply for something and I don't get it, but one of my friends gets it, I ask to look at their work, and almost always I've misinterpreted something. So I'm starting to be more on top of attending the Zooms where they talk through the application one line at a time, and they give you more direction and tell you exactly what they're looking for. So that was a roundabout way, but yeah. Do we feel good about moving to the next slide? Or the next little group?
Does anybody have questions? I super hogged all of the questions. So if you guys have some, please pipe up.
Okay, we'll have some time at the end too. So next slide. Come on, Chris, you have one job. That's the wrong way. Okay, so being your sleekest self. I see these as like the pillars of being a good hustler and the most positive light. That's identifying your strengths, identifying how you want to grow, building your network, and having perspective. We've covered some of these just in organic conversation, but I'm going to start kind of from the bottom and build it up a little bit. Some of people that have been in Artist Inc. will actually recognize the beginning steps of this. Clicky click. So assets and deficits. This is part of an ADEP analysis. You're going to think, and you'll probably need to make notes on this, but I'll show you an example of what mine looks like. So you're going to look at your work, your art practice, your hobbies, like what you do in your everyday life. And you create a list of the activities and the spaces that you're good at. You're very talented. You just nail that brief every time. And then be honest about the things that you're not so good at. And don't dwell, don't beat yourself up. Just make that list. I'll show you what mine is. Click. So in my assets, I'm a big picture person. I'm a quick and adept learner. I'm good at mimicking. If I hear something or if I see something, I can mentally break down how that happened and be able to replicate it. One of my talents is at identifying needs of others. I lead by doing. I'm determined. I do storytelling, hardworking, logical. On my deficit side, and this may be something that's a little sensitive to people, but there's a couple of things in my deficits that I don't have control over. And that's okay. I still need to, for myself, put them in deficits because I'm going to show you what to do with those deficits a little bit later on. I have narcolepsy, so that limits my education sources. If I have to sit and read something for a long period of time, or if I have to be still for any reason, I kind of turn into a fainting goat and I'm out. So it's really hard for me to consume information in that way. I have dyslexia, so I am not the final editor for anybody, including myself. And then like I'm quick-witted on my humor, and sometimes that gets me in trouble because I think I'm funny. And that has lost me a few jobs when I worked for the man. And I have a really big difficulty following rules I don't align with. And those are all pretty much things that stand out pretty hard as far as things I don't need to be in the space of. So the next step is your endure and prefer. So this is, you look at the same stuff, your work, your art practice, community involvement, all those things, and you're going to be looking at not just tasks, but like, are there schedules you prefer? Are you not a morning person, or do you need to go to bed by 9 p.m.? Some people are both. And then like peopling, like what size people do you like to be around? What type of people do you like to be around? Situations you enjoy. Do you like to be on the outside? Do you like to be on the inside? And you want to compare those to your dislikes. Like, what are the things that you're miserable in? Do you feel yourself shrinking in? So here's an example of mine. Clicky click. So, and I'm just going to go over a few. I'm a late night person. I like flexible schedules. I like mutually beneficial relationships. I like being the center of attention. But in my endure stuff, like paperwork, waiting, busy work, like changes in my existing workflow. If I already know how to do it, why do I have to learn it again? Oh, because they changed the algorithm or something. Anything that's isolating, and sunlight, physical exertion. Unfortunately, I'm not into that. But by creating this list, I'm able to understand myself a lot better. Clicky click. So now we take, and so we covered that in Artist Inc., but now we take that and we understand how to use that data. So anything that you prefer to do and that you're really good at, you're going to thrive while you're doing it. You're going to get energy while you're creating in that area, while you're doing that job. You're not going to feel like you're working, and you're going to think, oh my God, I have totally scammed these people because they're paying me to do something I would probably be doing on my own if there wasn't money involved. So the things that you enjoy doing, your assets, but you, oh, I have something flipped. Oh my goodness, I did not catch that. Okay, so thing that you prefer to do, but you're not very good at it, a deficit should say grow. And yeah, that one. That's the wrong one. Okay. So that should say grow, because what you're doing when you are like, if you enjoy doing something, but you're not very good at it, you can identify where you need education. So those are things that you would like to keep on your own, but you may need a mentor during. So on the endure side, that's the things that we are mindful on trying to find somebody else to do those. So if you're really good at something, but you're enduring doing it, then that's going to be something you tolerate doing. And that's just like, fine, I'll do it because I don't trust anybody else to do it the way I do it. But when you find that perfect person, you can pass it off. And then the last one is things that you endure doing and you suck at it. You can almost pass that to anybody and they'll do a better job than you. So because it drains you and you hate it, and you're going to move really slow because you don't like doing it, and you're going to leave mistakes in there because you're not going to be really focused on like honing it and crafting it. So clicky click. So to be able to like look like you have more hours in the day, you want to lean into the things you're good at. And then instead of just failing at the things you're bad at, you're going to lean into giving that to somebody else. Clicky click. So things that I thrive in is going to be hands-on stuff, things that align with my values. With people, I love people. The more I can get around, the better. I love music festivals because I'm around thousands of my new best friends. Things are shaded in AC, which is not music festivals. I love new projects. I love things that I can drag and drop. I love the creation of this new stuff and things that I have creative control. I will probably never give up these spaces because I look like a boss while I'm in them. And I am just extremely comfortable with them, and they are my reason for being. Clicky click. So, and areas I need to grow in, you know, they're the things that I'm not necessarily the best in, but I'm interested in them. I enjoy the process of learning. So that's going to be things like marketing needs, funding ideas and stuff. It's areas that I don't feel like I'm an expert in. So, you know, think about what areas, yeah, like Sarah said, that you want to grow in, and that in directions that you will enjoy that doing that part of your practice. Clicky click. Tolerate. Oh man, I hate being good at these things. I hate being good at these things so much. And eventually I want to pass these off, and that's the goal. But they usually end up sticking with you until you just meet somebody that's amazing at that craft. And I'll talk about how to find those type of people to bring into your lives. But yeah, there's stuff like roadie work, accounting, video editing, you know, all that busy work, right? So clicky click. And then draining. I stay far away from these. I do have, I almost always hire this stuff out. Secretary work, stuff that's isolated. If I'm repairing something, just do not understand it. So yeah, I always look for somebody to do this. And by leaning into just existing in your thriving and your growth, you know, you're not in those spaces that just like suck the life out of you, and you're able to move more fluidly. And, you know, it works really good for like being able to do more things. Clicky click. So tips we have from that is you're going to look at your resume and see if there's anything in your art practice that you're doing or in your hobbies that you can add to your resume if you have a day job. Most people do. If you are a performer and you're comfortable talking in front of people, then you might want to add public speaking to your resume. There's a whole nother increment of pay for people that like to speak in front of people. There's a lot of shy people out there. So public speaking pays well because of that. You're going to look for education and development programs based off of where you want to grow. If you're offered a new project or a new position, reverse engineer it. Look at what all you're going to have to do for that project. Look at what all is going to be involved in that position. Is that going to be things that you thrive in, or is that going to suck the life out of you? You're going to look at collaborators. So when you meet collaborators, ideally, you're going to look for people that thrive in the things that you don't, the things that you're enduring, and then the things that suck the life out of you. You will meet somebody that likes to do that. I met somebody who their zen is to clean houses and organize. And I could not get her as a hair client fast enough. So I did her hair and she reorganized my salon. And that was probably almost a decade ago. And my salon still works in a very good workflow because she taught me how to think in the correct way to do that. Also hiring assistants, bringing somebody in and paying them to do the work that you don't want to do. Now you have a list of those jobs that you can give and kind of take a chance on some people because you know you're going to suck at it. All right, so clicky click. And we had this whole next slide thing that we were going to do that was all polished, but I've gone back to the clicky click thing. So when we grow, we have two ways we can grow. We can grow from experiences and we can grow from education. And I have done a lot of growth from experiences, and that's the hard way. Sometimes we do have to grow from experiences, but I really like education and the fact that somebody else has gone across that school of hard knocks and I can cheat off of their work and the notes they've already made. Reasons to seek education. I have 4 different reasons why I go into this space. Sometimes I don't know what I don't know. Like going into that grant class. I really thought I knew how I was going to answer everything. And then after I left, I rewrote everything except for, I think, my name. And sometimes I'm going in to develop new skills. So that's in that growth area, or refining my existing skills. Do understand that if you get into that class and you realize that you didn't realize what all this involved and you're not a fan, you are in the ideal place to find people that are interested. I see here, send a voicemail. Sorry, somebody's trying to call me. Okay, so like, you're in the best place to find somebody that enjoys doing that, because everybody in that room took that class because they were interested in it. So yeah, I love finding my collaborators and people to do things that they're just better at than me. Clicky click. So education options, we have our GetSmART. Of course, there's various different Zooms and in-person options. GetSmART uses them, but also so does Mid-America Arts Council. And the more you get into the space, the more that social media will go ahead and feed you conferences and courses and classes and lessons and all the spaces that you can stand on the shoulders of giants and, you know, become more successful in your own path. Click. Did we go one too far? Yeah, there we go. Because this one's important to me. Who pays for this stuff? Because a lot of times this is like expensive, right? So my favorite way for funding to happen is if I am paid to take the class. I think Scarlett will remember what this is called. There's a word in the art world for it. It's not a residency. Maybe that's a word, but basically it's the equivalent to if your job sent you to and paid you your hourly pay to go to a conference and to learn about a thing and then bring that education in back to work with you. And I'll remember the name of it. But yeah, there's a word for that. And I heard it way back and I've been trying to remember it. But yeah, you can be paid to go get the education. Reimbursement grant? No, that's not it. Because they're actually paying you for your time to be there. The second one would be a reimbursement grant or a sponsored thing. So that's where a grant comes in and reimburses some of the pays for some of or all the education. In that, I put sponsored as well, because like this class here, even though it's free for attendees, the person that's teaching the class is being paid. So that is a like a sponsored education thing because it's being brought in by an organization. And this is like the quality of education I get as well, because in the paid to attend and the grant, like the stuff that's grant funded and sponsored, I really feel is generally at a higher level. And I get more juice out of the squeeze for it. When I barter with another artist, it's a bit more costly because a lot of times I'm not able to sell that piece that I've negotiated the trade with, or it takes that chunk of my time. But I do like the fact that we're both kind of on the same level and we're both growing together. So yeah, it's a good personal interaction. So free always seems like it's really good, but the problem with free stuff is, what do they say? Nothing's free. So a lot of the times when you attend these, like, drop your email address and we'll send you, 7 ways to, like, increase your Spotify or something. What happens when you do that is you get, like, this onslaught of emails trying to sell you a course from that because they're wanting to build up their email list. So be mindful, like, if you're in something like that Mid-America is providing, or like state sponsored, like Arkansas Arts Alliance, that's a nonprofit related, then they're getting their funding from somewhere and they're able to pay that educator. But if you're going in and it's a person by themselves, a lot of times there's an ask at the end of that content, and sometimes key stuff's missing from that content. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm hesitant there. And then self-pay. I just hate taking money out of my own pocket. But I mean, I've done it a million times. So let's hear it. Clicky click. So while you're at these education things, you're going to work on building your network. It is fish in a barrel when you are there. Everybody there is a creative. It's not like you're at a bar and you're hoping you run into somebody that knows something about social media content. If you are taking a class on social media content for artists, everybody in there has knowledge about social media for artists. Take advantage of this opportunity. You want to tell who you are and tell them what you're looking for in the space that you're in, and you need to ask them who they are and what space they're in. Take notes. It is, you're certain you'll remember that person's name and the things that they want. But you wake up the next day after 3 gin and tonics and things are a little blurry, and you ended up talking to like 20 people, and oh, was this person this or the other? A lot of people are good at 1 or 2 of these, but if you can do most of these or all of these, you will stand out to people. Follow up, reach out to them, and let them know that you enjoyed meeting them, because they may be a little foggy as well. Maybe put a little bit of something in there that you guys talked about, so that you'll help jog their memory of which one of the 20 people you were that they talked to. If you have any successes, you can share those with them as they happen. That's a good way to have that, because that follow-up was the second tap of building that network. The third one is either you're like, oh, hey, this thing's happening. You may be interested in it. I have this showing. I have this show. Or you could see that they have something coming up. So you just take it upon yourself and share the thing that they have, so that they're exposed to your audience as well. And last, be mindful of being of service. Like, if you can bring in things that are like useful to them, that has value, and that is the number one way to stand out, as opposed to everybody else that's about doing their own stuff and self-serving. So, clicky click. When I network, it is so easy. I see it all the time, that the only people that the herd wants to speak to, the participants want to speak to, is the speaker. It's the only person they're interested in. Maybe a couple of the people that are putting on the event, but those people get swarmed time and time again. And I will say I have been that person before, because I am a very focused Capricorn, and I can really zoom in on a specific target and goal. But I have learned better ways. I call it holistic networking, because I try to spend 1/3 of my time talking to each group of people. We can identify who's on our level. And because we can identify who's on our level, we can identify who's below our level and who's above our level. But these people need to be handled and treated differently. So I'm going to start from the bottom and I'm going to move my way up, because I think that's the best way to understand how this flows. So when you're working with somebody below you, you need to be mindful to share knowledge with them because they don't have it. And somebody shared it with you, or you learned it the hard way. Hopefully somebody shared it with you and made it easy. There's things we talked about, how you have to prune things off that don't work for you anymore. These are the ideal people to give opportunities to pass off things that they're gonna grow with. And it's things that may not be worth your energy or your time at this point. Maybe it doesn't work on the price point anymore. The most important thing is these people are eager, and sometimes they're naive. Put a heavy focus on not taking advantage of them. Share with them the fact that you value them and that you put value on what they create. So that's huge, because I think we can all agree that we wish there was more of that when we were coming up. The people on your level, the people that you feel like that, it's easy to feel like you're competing with them. The thing is you guys are going through all the same things. So if you reach out to them and you build relationships with them, it's easier to trade things with them because, your quality of work is about the same level. Your pricing generally is at the same level. So it doesn't feel like you're giving, 40 hours of your work for like an hour of their work. You're able to talk about frustrations that you're having and successes that you're having. And they're the people that can really benefit from knowing of the things that you've gotten. A lot of these grants you can get once in your lifetime. So if you got that grant, it doesn't hurt you to tell the other peers in your group that it exists. Like, let's all get that $5,000 fellowship goal once in our life. And then resource sharing, that leans into what I just said. If you are using Canva and you're loving Canva, then tell other artists about it. The last one is above you. And this is the one that everybody reaches to. And that being of service is important, because that's how you stand out amongst all the other people that lined up to meet them. I've seen that at events, and a line queues up if people are, well behaved. So you want to be polite and respectful. Think before you do things. Don't hand your demo to their kids that are waiting to leave with them to go to the airport. Like, I have seen that. It's like, hey, give this to your mommy, who's like a big executive at Spotify. Do you think that got listened to? Because I don't think it did. And at the end of the day, don't take things personally. You don't know where they're at. You don't know what they're juggling. You don't know what contracts they're in. They may not be allowed to listen to music that's not under their label, that's unsolicited. So don't take it personally. Keep a polite conversation up, and they'll pass along those opportunities if they feel like it's a good fit and that it's going to benefit the people they're connecting with. Clicky click. And this one only gets one slide, and I swear it's the most important one, but I couldn't think of any other way to divide it up. As artists, we really get on our own heads and we focus on what we're doing, and we get that tunnel vision. And to really be a good partner in creating something for others to enjoy, you need to be mindful of not just the people that are going to be there to enjoy it and make sure they have a good experience, but also the venue that you're working with. The venue has a certain criteria to be in this space. They have certain standards, they have certain bills, they have certain hours that employees are working. All that stuff has to work together. The audience, they, ideally they enjoy the entire night, not just your section of your performance or your art. So you want to make sure that you're in lineups or at galleries in which your fans and your audience will also enjoy the other things that are present in the space, where they're comfortable, because you want to make sure that they're where they feel like they got something of value out of it. So I'm gonna open it up for questions. I saw a couple of things pop up, but I couldn't read past the first like line or two of it. So is there any questions I need to answer? Oh, we can go to the next slide too, because it says questions.
Part of the conversation above had to do with imposter syndrome and sort of feeling comfortable with putting yourself out there, even if you had good, I don't know, resume or cover letter background, just not, I guess, engaging.
Yeah, I will say you have to have a first draft to have a second draft. So, and Artist Inc. was really good in helping us do our artist statement, our bio, all these documents you need for grants and stuff. It's part of what Artist Inc. does, and that's kind of part of the beauty of Artist Inc. is it covers such a well-rounded space that whatever you're missing is the part you walk away going, oh my God, wow, I found this here. But if you talk to 3 different artists that went through the program, they will paint it like blind men describing an elephant. Each one of them will tell you a different facet of it because that's what they were missing when they took it. And mine was, I didn't have the documents for grants and I didn't understand that. So I built these documents and then the pandemic hit. And really it was my ability and confidence to apply for the grants that kept us from going bankrupt during that. So.
And when you're talking about documents, you're talking about like what, your artist statement and bio?
Now, artist statement, being able to look at yourself from, I'm used to looking at myself from either the venue's eye or a listener's eye. Like that was what we picked for 15 years. And being able to step out of that and kind of take your coolness off a little bit, because like, oh yeah, why do I write music? I don't know, I'm good at it and people pay me money. Like, you can't put that in your grant application. You have to be like, oh, I write it from this perspective because as a child that grew up in this situation, this is where my story comes from. And it's not fake. It's just something that as performing artists, we spent so much time learning how to perform that we didn't take the time to realize why we were drawn to doing it in the first place. And what our story was. So it filled in that gap that I did not get while I was taking music in high school. So I know this is a lot to bite off. So I'm hoping people are still following and finding it helpful.
Oh yeah, go.
I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
So I remember last year, because I had done a few things with Veronica. I want to fill out, I want to be a part of the Artist Inc. And because I think that I have a lot of things I could add, but the problem is I'm overwhelmed. I am the full-time, that's why I listed what I do. I have no free time because I'm doing too many things to do exactly what she was talking about. I had already learned these skills 20 years ago. I'm just trying to figure out how I can, it's all the paperwork that's hard for me because I don't have time to sit down and tell my story that way. My story is physical. I'm a physical teller. I'm not as good at writing it,
So one good part to that is the grants are starting to be open to people submitting video responses. So that'll be helpful for you.
Wow,
I know that was in a few different areas. Yeah, it's a great question. Another thing is I used to do what you're describing. I used to live in a state of just hypervigilance, like, oh, I can just sleep 5 or 6 hours. It'll be fine. And now I work at a state of 80%. I consider 80% full. If I'm at 80% and I'm presented with almost anything, I say no. And the reason why is I have missed some really, amazing opportunities because I was at 100%. And I was already at the point where I was sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night. And this amazing opportunity that would have been absolutely perfect for me comes up. And now I have to make the decision on if I turn it down, if I don't show up the way I should show up to everything I do, or if I cancel something on something. So it's hard. Really delegating, finding places to put things is, I mean, that's the first step, because you got to unload your plate some. You got too many tabs open, honey.
You
And
have
it's
no
hard.
idea.
It's hard. It's really hard. It's hard to give up that control.
Well,
But go ahead.
It's more like right now I'm not teaching college classes because it's summer. So for me, like, this is the time for me to like do more, but now I'm starting to need to work more because, again, it's the money flow. Like, as you know, it's the constant struggle. So I'm not making an excuse. I actually am really interested in writing these things, and I've been working with another woman who has been slowly coaching me. But it's like I remember particularly when there's something about like explaining your business plan. I feel like that was part of like some of the questioning that they were asking for maybe a grant that I was trying to apply for. And I was just like, I mean, I want to be successful. I want to continue to grow. I don't have a specific, I want to make $5,000 by the end of this, certain year. I don't look at it in numbers. I look at it as in growth as an artist, or as in a, like better venues, better audience kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and there's also there's also the sustainability part of it.
Right.
And that, would you agree that handling all the things is not, doesn't feel sustainable to you?
No.
So
I do all.
So start looking at those things that they just kill you to do. And there's kind of two ways to go about it. One is by using programs like something that sucked the life out of me was doing something that was like on like graphic stuff, because my husband and he knew how to use Photoshop. And every time I started to learn something, they updated the program, and then I had to relearn to be able to get to the same level I was at, which is one of my pet peeves. And then Canva came out, and they're like drag and drop. So it went from something that I absolutely despise to something that was like, oh yeah, crap, give me an hour. I'll do the next flyer. It'd be super easy. So I was able to move. Yeah, Canva is where this was made at. And so technology is a way to do it. Is you can lean into new technology and be able to master stuff. We have a text out list that's literally just pressing a button for every send that comes from my phone. And I'm looking at upgrading and moving into one in which I enter everything on the computer. And then it's one click of send, and it sends all the stuff out. It does cost more, but that'll probably end up taking an hour out and condensing it down to probably about 15 minutes after I move it all in there. So yeah, but yeah, I've been there. The making the space to take artist ink is the first step, and you can take that over a weekend. If you want to see, if you feel like you have most of the tools already, Patty. But yeah, I mean, there's some steps to becoming an educator in that program, because they have steps to it. Chris has taken the leadership session, and that I think is over 8 weeks, and they meet every week for 8 weeks. I took it last year, and we had to do that before we could be facilitators.
Yeah,
So
that's part, but the actual workshop, it would have to, you would still apply for that too. And then if you're part of that cohort, you would get to go through either an 8-week session or a 3-day session in the express version. And we have several of those coming up. We have one in El Dorado coming up on June the 10th. but in the future, we're going to have one coming in Fort Smith and also 2 that are virtual. And so you'll just need to keep an eye out on our social media or our Facebook page. I'm trying to nail down the actual details because the next fiscal year is about to start, and that's when I'll have those available. I'm sorry to interrupt y'all, but I do have a question from Jonathan. What is one way to get out of writer's block / slump of trying to get back into making a ton of artwork? I think a lot of creatives felt this way, especially in the wake of COVID. Either you became like a supercharged creative or you just wilted inside and just really struggled. And then
So,
I think
yeah,
Tanya, question
it's a
after.
little, yeah, it's a little different for everybody. So what has helped us is when we feel ourselves kind of getting into that, we'll journal and we'll just kind of dabble in different things. We'll go out for a walk, we'll sit with our instruments and we'll journal through our day and record that day when we like what we felt like writing and creating and what we didn't afterwards. So that way we can figure out, is it those 3 days that we went to the gym and exercised? Was that when we all of a sudden felt like working on new stuff? Was it immediately after we went on a walk? Was it when we weren't eating fast food and we ended up cooking some good quality meals at home? It can be things like that. It can be something where you discover that it's when you weren't working, 10 hours a day at your day job and you had a 3-day weekend. And the same way, I like work. So like that's part of what I thrive. So if I don't have a certain amount of work in the salon, I wilt. So if I have a nice, my sweet spot is 4 to 6 hours of work in the salon. And then afterwards I'm like, yeah, let's do some music, because that's, I'm kind of a perpetual motion machine like that. As long as I'm going, I can keep going. There's a couple of things. I was told when I was writing a grant that the best way to get your first words out is to set a timer for 10 minutes and to go to the first prompt. And the moment your timer starts, you're typing. It's a flow of consciousness. You can start off with, oh my God, Veronica has no ideas. She is just completely blank. She doesn't even know why she's doing this. The stupid question was about this, and I don't even know anything about this. Well, I kind of do come at it from this angle. And it clears out the junk out of the pipe so that actually new, fresh information can start flowing in. And then when you're at 10 minutes, you finish that thought, and then you just move to your next prompt and you spend 10 minutes there. That can help clear it out. There was another one where you look around, like you pick a random profession and then you write, and this was for songwriters, so I don't know how this would translate, but you write down 10 verbs, like action verbs. Like if it was plumber, it would be like welding and fitting and sorry, I had to let a cat in. If not, she's gonna make a lot of noise. Welding and fitting and cleaning and repairing and all these things. And then you look around the room, and like the first 10 things your eyes see, you write those down. And then you kind of cross back and forth and you connect these different things. And decidedly, like, you wouldn't connect draining and water next to each other because it's too easy. You would like put water and like fixing or something, I don't know. And then you try to string that together to tell a story, as ridiculous as it is. And that kind of gets the brain going. And from my understanding, because I don't do a lot of lyric writing, a lot of times people will find odd pairings that they'll work in a song and build around that. So I don't know what the painting version of that is, but I'm sure there's one, maybe putting colors on that don't normally go together and playing with that. That help? Anything else, or do we need to shift over to another one? Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's up? You can unmute Tanya, right?
Yeah. Okay. Hold up. I'm almost ready here. Okay. Yeah, a couple of things. I want to say where you started off kind of with you did the artist, like an artist statement for a nurse and another profession. I really related and appreciate that, because the artist statements, the things I've had to do for the fellowship grant and all these things, they are just, I lose sleep over them. I'm a visual artist. I don't know how to use words. My therapist, I talked to her about it because I had to talk to her about it. And she said, well, they don't ask like writers to illustrate what they do. It's when visual artists have to like write stuff. It can be very difficult for us. So I really appreciated that. I've learned a lot from Robert Beam's workshops. But it's still, I've had to hire someone to help me, and it's apparently been worth it. But he's my maintenance guy, so he's around a lot. Because I can get these sentences down, but I don't know how to put them together to where they make sense. So he does more than editing. That right there, I appreciated me starting on that. I wanted to say that because I really related with that. That's one. And second, that was a statement more than a question. Second one is, so you put down the diversification. And I think I thought I was diversifying when I bought the apartment building. And for me, it's been even a worse decision than being an artist as far as going in the hole. I'm assuming that you've got some rental and it's worked for you. So then I start to beat myself up because I feel like I can't do anything good, But I mean, it's still, I mean, I realize that I've still got to like do some other things. Like I'm afraid to teach, but I feel like I need to get out there and do that. So my next thing is to figure out how to get in front of people and talk, and that it's scary to think of doing that.
So I'll chime in on the on teaching. I find that when I teach is when I really fill in all the little cracks. When I thought I knew everything about the thing is when I teach, is when I actually it's I always joke around that it's a scam because I'm using it to learn myself, and I learned so much in the process, and I have figured out a way to get somebody to pay me to do that. So I'm like, oh, this is sweet. This is like capitalism at its best. Oh, Kat wants to go out. She literally just wanted food. The second part is how long have you been doing art?
Well, I've done different. I was a graphic artist for like 40 years ago, and then I went into sculpture. I've been doing the visual arts and the fine art thing pretty much. I quit a few times for a little while periods, but pretty much the last 25 years or so, or 20. I've really grown a lot in the last few, though. Yeah.
How long have you been a landlord?
15 years.
Okay. So those are different numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to not understand it when you get into it. That's part of that constant growth and constantly learning thing. You're not going to be gangbusters coming right out on a brand new skill. Rental is something that is, it's really difficult. I had a renter for a time period. I don't at this time. And I'm actually going to rent the space to a business I'm starting. So it'll be tax-wise, it'll be a rental, but I know the group that will be in it's going to be really good because it's a me. But if you're doing a rental and it's a bit overwhelming and stuff, look into seeing what putting a person in between your tenants and yourself.
My problem no longer is the tenants. It was, and I took myself out of it and didn't let people give me money. And I told them I had a management company for a while that I didn't have. I made up an entity and they had to mail it to it. And if they had any problems, they had to send it in writing. And I was like, yeah, okay. I did that. Now I have the best tenants. All good. I haven't graduated, so I've come a long ways, but I have trouble finding anybody to fix anything. So
yeah, no, that is a trouble. I had a really asking around in your community and just tell everybody what you're looking for. Like when you meet people, like you're talking about your art and you're like, you know, I've had a devil of a time with this or with that, and you'd be amazed. Somebody will be like, oh, actually, my, you know, my nephew or my husband does that. And like, you know, like my cousin does amazing electrical work, but has stopped. He's now working for the man at Summit. But I do have a really good plumber, and I do have a really good somebody that does roto-rooter stuff. So yeah, I can connect you with those.
okay,
And yeah,
a plumber would be
bartering,
good. Yeah.
yeah. My plumber's really busy and he tends to be expensive, but it's right every time the first time.
But I don't have an electrician right now. That sucks. But I did get a lot of good recommendations off of the Little Rock Power Ribbon group for HVAC, and I got a load of quotes coming in for some work. So that's a little
Okay,
that's good.
so you know how to resource things. That's good, because that's a big point here is a lot of people don't know how to resource things. They don't know how to reach out. So they're sitting there with their YouTube video trying to figure out how to be a master plumber today.
No,
So
yeah, I learned that I thought I was going to learn to do more when I got the building, but I learned that there's a lot of things that I don't want to do, and it's better to, you know. And I got behind on my art for a while because I got, you know, taken down with the building, and I'm really not letting that happen anymore. I'm putting the art first for me.
do you understand that you're not in the same space? So you're going to, sometimes you have to step away to come back. I've beat myself up over going weeks, sometimes months in between playing. Something's come up and I had to have, like, at one point in time, I had to have some stuff done on my jaw and I couldn't play for a period of time because I couldn't vibrate that area. And I really beat myself up on coming back, but I needed that time away from my art so that when I came back in, I was processing some stuff. There were things when I came back to it that I could do that I had been trying to do, and I just couldn't get there. And then stepping away is how I ended up being able to get over that hurdle. So it's okay to be in your life and then come back into your art. Like, you know, that's how life goes. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Are we ready for the final part?
I guess, because I just forgot my question.
Okay. Write it down if you think about it. And I'm gonna have Chris save the text. So I saw Danny had posted something. I want to make sure I have that. But yeah, I'm on my phone, so I don't know how to operate most of the things.
Yeah, and Robin actually has some electrical engineering experience, so that might be a good connection. If you guys want to drop your emails in the chat and stay connected, that is an option.
And I was going to add, I'm very extroverted. If anyone ever needs help, like going to things and I can make it, I would be your buddy.
I think that was
You're
directed to me.
And just go ahead and give her a list of the people that you want to meet. Sometimes I have people do that. I'm like, okay, so who do you want to meet at this thing? And they tell me, and I'm like, if I don't know them already, I'm like, okay, point them out. And then usually I can be a good facilitator in that way. Okay, so next slide, babe. Chris was trying to figure out how to save the chat. So sometimes I have grandiose ideas. Most of the time I have grandiose ideas. So what if you have this great idea that you want to do and you have made space in your life to be able to fit it in, because let's say you're working at that 80% full. So you have that 20% available for when something amazing and perfect comes along. That's the only time I give up my last 20%. Clicky click. So you have this idea, and like the best way to build your own project, to create your own opportunity, is you discover a need first, you craft your pitch, and you figure out all the elements that need to come together to make it happen. And then you seek funding. There is a big problem with artists going and looking for grants and going and looking for programs, seeing there's money somewhere, and then trying to figure out how they fit it into what they do, and then trying to figure out who would need that thing. And that can result in two things. It always results in the pitch being disjointed and feeling like non-authentic. The other thing is you either don't get the funding because they can tell that you created this around this idea of trying to get their money. Or even worse, you get the funding and now you have to do the thing that you didn't really plan on doing. And most of the time it makes you absolutely miserable while you're doing it. And it has much lower level like chance of success. So you definitely want to discover the need organically. Oh, what's Scarlett's question?
Other forms of passive income, savings account, investments, inheritance, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just a statement. Okay. All right. Clicky click. That is always, that's all funding though. Yeah. Basically follow what makes you happy. Like go into that space. So your idea, you got to ask yourself, how does this stand apart? Is it the location? Is it your level of expertise? Are you uniquely in a position with your experiences and with your knowledge to be able to execute this? Is your target demographic, does that make it unique? Really drill down, refine, and see who you're serving, why you're serving them, how you're serving them, where you're serving them. And if you're lucky, click, when you're doing your research and you're looking around for any organization that does something tangent to what you're doing, if you're lucky, in my opinion, you can find somebody that's already in the space or in the space adjacent to it, and their values align with yours. Clicky click. So partnering with an entity, this is a big question. Do you go and work with somebody else? Do you work and tangent with somebody else? Or are you going to go out on your own and do your own thing? Everybody at first wants to do their own thing because they're like, this is mine. This is my concept. The benefits for partnering with an entity are really like, I wish that there was an entity I could partner up with the nonprofit I'm creating right now, because I would love to have these things in place. But they have an existing structure. So they've already hired the lawyer, they've already hired the accountant, they've already come up with their letters of incorporation. They know their hiring policy, they know their firing policy, they know their corporate rules, they know what benefits they're going to provide. They have all that already in place, so you don't have to do that. They have resources established. They have people that give them money. If that is, that should be from grants, it should be from like fundraising, stuff they sell and generate on income. So they have a way in which they get the help from the community and the powers that be to be able to fund their whole project. They have a team in place. They've gone ahead and fired that first, like those people that didn't fit that first time when they put the team together. Everybody that's in that job understands their place and understands how they fit in the entire ecosystem. So that's some trial and error that you don't have to go through and some growing pains that you don't. And focus, like you're able to focus on your project and only your project and what you're doing within that. And you're able to reach out to that structure, those resources, that team, and be able to kind of borrow them so that you can execute the thing that you're trying to do. On top of that, you're not going into a space competing for the same resources for accomplishing a very similar task. So you can let all the money come to them and then they provide you with that funding. So it's really helpful. But if you don't have somebody, like if there's not somebody in that space that you can piggyback off of, click, Chris. Then you find yourself in this position where you have your things and you've kind of followed out a path, and then all of a sudden you go to step out to your next step, and there's not a landing place for that, and nobody provides that landing place. And you take it upon yourself to create that space and to create that thing for people like yourself that also want to land there. Click, click. And I don't know how many people here saw Everything All at Once, but the Everything Bagel can be super intimidating because all those things I just listed are things that you have to put into place when you create your own organization and your own opportunity. So let's go through, but you've learned most of the things already through this class that you're going to need for that. There's details, there's your letter of incorporation, there's, you know, are you going to be for-profit, nonprofit sort of thing, your business license. You can find all that just in normal resources that are available. But here's the things you're not going to find out from those groups. Click. So creating your own opportunities, you're going to use that hustle we just talked about. All those things where you're assessing what you're good at and what you're weak at and where you need to bring people in. You can figure out real quick where you need to bring somebody in. I don't need to understand how to do draft up my letters of incorporation and all that stuff. That's a lot of time that's going to take, but I can partner up with somebody in my network who is a lawyer, and he can do that stuff for me. So you're going to bring in collaborators, people that fill in those spots that you're weak in. One of the biggest things that to be mindful is build mutually beneficial ecosystem. You don't want to just take from people without providing them something of value and a reason for them to be there. Clicky click. So when you tap into your network, you're going to look for those complementary assets and prefers, people that thrive and work in the environment that just drains to you. You're going to look for aligning goals. So me and my partner in music do not want the same things out of music, which is strange because we're husband and wife. Chris wants to be able to provide for his family and to be comfortable and to be able to spoil people he loves with things and experiences that bring them joy. He wants to provide stability that he didn't have as a child for himself and for his immediate family around him. And he wants to help other creatives get into that space. I want a Grammy. I want to leave a mark on the human consciousness after I'm gone. We want very different things, but we can walk together and like along my path, we'll be comfortable and we'll have the things that allows us to have those experiences and spoil each other. And along his journey, you know, my thing can be at the end of that as well. So so you want aligning goals. They don't have to have the same goals, but they're goals that coexist and don't pull in opposite directions. Remember you're above, sideways, and below, because if you only reach out to people above you, then you don't have anybody to bring in to do your assistant work. People below you are going to be really happy to have that opportunity to do that assistant work and start meeting the people that's in your circle. That's going to help them grow and learn. And then of course that sideways, that's a good group to reach out as collaborators usually. And then above you, that's a great group to tap into for funding. Going in and talking to your college professor and asking them questions about if they have connections or if they know of programs for that'll either help fund you or people to put on your board, people that you put on your board oftentimes donates to your nonprofit. So, you know, it's good to be able to reach above you and reach to those areas. There is something that they say in the industry, and Mary Ellen shared this with me a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was brilliant. It's inform, involve, and inspire. Someone cannot be inspired. Inspire is a fancy word for opening their wallet and handing you money to go do the thing. Somebody cannot be inspired to do something if they don't feel like they're connected to it / involved in the project. And somebody can't feel like they're involved and connected to the project if they haven't been informed. So you always start at inform. And from the people you inform, you will find the people that want to be involved. And from the people that want to be involved, you will find the people that will be inspired. Let's see here. What's the path of winning a Grammy? Well, you gotta create a really good good album. Actually, I just got nominated to become a voting member of the Recording Academy. So those are the people that cast the votes. So, you know, make friends with the people that select the winners. And I'll be working within their organization this year or next year, whenever they decide to accept me into their, you know, whenever they're wise enough to accept my application. I couldn't read past the first couple of dots. So was there more there?
Or being part of showcases.
Being part of showcases, that is being present in the scene usually, or submitting information. Being in your community, being in your network, tapping that community and being like, hey, I see y'all are playing over at Stickies. Like, how do I get in there? Can you put me on a show? You know, if somebody's already playing there, they may be able to be like, hey, this next show, can we have such and such open for us? That helps. Sometimes with showcases, there's a submission thing. So it's just filling out the form and being mindful of that. Sometimes you get discovered, and that's like industry showcases. And that is really luck of the draw and showing up prepared at every show, just in case somebody's in the audience that can give you an opportunity. I have no doubt been at performances that had 3 people in the audience, and one of those people were there wanting to do business with me and bring me in on something that was fantastic. So it's not about the people that didn't show up, it's about the people that are there. Let's see here. Next slide. Clicky click. I had to do Vanilla Ice. It shows my age, I know, but you know, those lines are coming back in here and stuff. But being able to stop, like, you've brought this person in, you're telling them about what you're doing and what you envision. There's a reason why you're having the meeting. You're having the meeting with this person because they're important and they work in space that you do not. And if they do that, they can tell you what you're missing. So I'm moving everything right now to like a little graph thing that I have online, but I have a notebook in which I have pages and pages and pages of stuff. And as I have each one of these meetings that's leading up to me building my slide deck to present what I'm wanting to do for the music community here in Arkansas, I like the person I'm meeting with, after I do my little pitch of what I want to do and explain how it works, we end up looking through the paperwork and they're like, oh, you're missing this. Oh, you're missing that. Oh, hey, you need to talk to such and such. They can have funding for you too. And if like all of this stuff ties in, because it's not everybody's going to have all the answers, but if you can listen to the people you bring in that are wise in other spaces, you can build something as a community. But you do have to stop and give mindfulness to their, like, what they bring in. So clicky click. Mutually beneficial relationships. There's a one word name for this. It's symbiosis. We all learned that probably 5th, 6th grade. I don't know. That's when I learned it. But sometimes when you say that word, people haven't heard it since 5th or 6th grade. And I feel like a longer name for it puts the amount of weight behind it that I feel like it needs. I believe so strongly in mutually beneficial relationships and making sure that people that work with me have benefit from working with me. I always step outside and look at their perspective. I look at what they need from this. Why are they in this space? How can I make sure that they get what they need? I always try to acknowledge their value and what they are bringing in. But on top of that, I like to reward team members. I'll first of all, I'll be like, how much I owe you? Because money is my love language. Like money is the thing that like, you know, don't buy me flowers, just, you know, bring me just like a container of cash. But some people are icky about money. And sometimes like you have to listen to those people that are like, oh no, like just buy me a gift card if you want to, or you don't owe me anything. I will buy you tickets to a band that you love and surprise you with it. I will buy you a gift card to your favorite restaurant. I will get the tab for your drinks. I will find some way to reward you for working with me. It's super important because I don't want to be somebody that just takes. That gets heavier and heavier. So if you're a person that you're trading back and forth, and like it's not a tit for tat necessarily if that's not what they want, but you just make sure they get something so that when you need something, you guys feel like you're still balanced. Also paying yourself. This is something people have really hard times doing when they're in a project with other people that benefits the community or is a passion project. There'll be times in which you end up putting that as in kind, but you still know the value of what you were. In kind is a fancy word for you went without pay so that you know the budget would work. But if you can pay yourself, because that's how you make this sustainable, and that's how you create art your entire life and don't feel used up and unappreciated. Clicky click. So now that you have the idea, now that you have the people, now that you have all the things together, you got your slide deck, you know how the money's going to work and everything, you have your proposal, now you move into funding. So you move into this funding as you now look for funding that matches where the space you're already in and the space you're moving into. I will say that when I have had an idea and then I have found a funding opportunity, a lot of times the process of doing the grant or the process of forming the slide deck, forming my plan, really fleshes out that idea. And I'm so excited by it. And don't tell them this, but even if I don't get the money, 9 times out of 10, I still do the thing. I find a way to do the thing. By hook or crook, I figure out how to still succeed with it. If I have to move from getting that grant to crowdfunding it, or if I add a couple of shows or some education that I do, I find a way to make that still a reality. Clicky click. And when you're funding a project, you have your raised income, your grants, your donations. Ideally, if it's a nonprofit, these need to be in thirds. It very rarely works out exactly like that. Oh Lord, sorry, noisy neighbor. And I think this is a bit like this is way off in the future, but this also works with funding our artistic practice because you have the money you raise from direct sales of what you do. You have the money that helps fund your creation, and then you have donations that people drop in your tip jar or through your GoFundMe or what have you. Clicky click. Funding sources. Oh yeah. So your funding sources. A lot of times people are like, okay, so the Arts Council does art, so I'm going to go ask the Arts Council for money because I do art. And you kind of end up in a cycle there. And although the amount of money that they give to artists and the things that they're able to accomplish with the relatively small budget they have is amazing. There's other noisy neighbor. There's also other places to get money, and some of these people have much deeper pockets than the Arts Council does. So we look at who is in your network, who are you connected with, who are they connected with. When you start sharing what you do, they'll start name dropping and they'll say things like, oh, I'll make that introduction for you. I'll put you guys in the same space. And then now you can inform them of what you're doing. What wheelhouse does your project benefit? Like, who are you benefiting with doing this? Sometimes they'll come together, or sometimes there's a department like Department of Tourism in which their job is to bring people here. Well, if what you're going to do is going to bring people to Arkansas from out of state, all of a sudden that could be a possible funder for what you're doing. Who does your project benefit? Sometimes people in that community can come together. We see that all the time with KBF, where artists that are played on the radio station come together and they perform at a fundraiser at Sticky's or Whitewater or Vino's to raise money for that that radio station.
About 10 minutes left.
Yeah, I got you. And how to reach a larger audience. Consider using social media. Consider tapping into that, because if everybody gave you $1 out of the 2,000 people that viewed your video, that puts you in a different position for being able to create. So you can put your donation stuff either like in a link tree and have it directly on your TikTok or your Instagram, so people can choose to tip you for either the art you're creating or the content, like the education you're bringing to the table. So clicky click. At the end of the day, and this is my next to last slide, or no, 2 slides. At the end of the day, when you get funded, like, actually do it. Like, be real, don't be fake, do the thing, because this is a very small world. And if you show up and you do the thing and you make the effort and you show up and you do all the things you said you were going to do, even if the project fails, because there is a chance of that, you've been a good egg, you've been a pleasure to work with, you have been excited, they have been invested in your success, they'll come along for the next ride with you. In fact, you're vetted by them because they know you're good and they know you're passionate about what you're doing. If you just take the money and run, not only are there legal ramifications, but also if you do that, then you end up hurting the community and not being trusted the next time. Clicky click. So this is how you do everything all at once. And you just keep using these same skill sets in every space that you're in. So yeah, one more click. And here is some of the places to find me. And oh, no, that's the end poll.
Yeah, we got a
Oh yeah, we have a poll. So people get to answer stuff. So I'll bring that down. So can y'all see me? It outsmarted me again.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, yay. So questions, hit me with them.
Hey, everybody, we did have a lot of information in the chat. If you are interested in saving that, you can go ahead and in the chat function, you can hit the 3 dots beside the smiley face. And then it'll let you download that. So, and thank you so much for being here and for doing this poll. I'm curious about what's what.
Yeah.
Should I stop the screen share?
Leave it up for a little bit.
And if anybody has any questions, we've got like a minute left, so yeah, hit us up. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Is it a time frame? Yeah. Okay.
Where was the dots? Because I was trying to save it and it just says copy.
Oh, okay. It's when you have the chat function up and it says to everyone, You
I see it,
says
save
type
chat.
message here. If you look down, there's a smiley face emoji. Actually, I just realized he opened his mouth. Oh yeah. Anyway, it says ... more. When you click on more, it says save chat. Yeah.
Yep, I just found it. Thank you.
I didn't know the little guy opened his mouth. That's going to keep me entertained.
So you're talking about funding and doing projects, and I do a lot of the public engagement, a lot of volunteer stuff. I'm getting to the point now where I have to, because I know I got to where I don't donate much art anymore, only maybe a few things in a year because I've donated more than I sold before. But I'm getting to the point where now I make the decision, how much can I volunteer of my time without going over? I mean, I want to do it all, but how do you approach that?
The way I look at it is I try to be a connector for those people, for people that want to be in that space. So if I'm not going to be in that space, I like to hand them 2 or 3 people that want that opportunity. So it's all about pruning off the things that no longer work for you. And if you provide them with your replacement, and you don't go, this is my replacement, you're like, hey, I wanted to introduce this person. They have a little more time on their hands, and they're wanting to move into this space, and I think they'd be a great fit. Because you don't want to just be like, I can't do this anymore, so here's somebody that you can contact, because you may want to go back in that door. But if you're like, hey, I'd like to introduce you to somebody that I think will be an asset to your team, you can kind of fill that space and then just slowly back away.
Yeah, because a lot of the things are not things I want to step away from. I only got so much in a year that I can actually do, probably, just one away. You go,
and really whittling down to that 80%, you would be amazed what type of peace happens.
What's the 80%? Give me that again.
So I always say, or I've taken upon myself to be 80% busy. My 80% busy, I consider my 100%. Because I don't think 110% doesn't really exist. 110% means you're missing sleep, you're eating while you're working, and it's not sustainable. So 80% of what I'm capable of doing is what I try to schedule myself. And when I feel like I have an extra 20%, I stop scheduling for that week. Like that week has been closed. And what that does is that leaves me a 20%, just in case perfect comes along. The ideal, most perfect opportunity, like if I wrote the opportunity myself and handed it to fate to hand back to me, that opportunity. And what that does is that allows me to go up and include that opportunity and still be able to do everything I've already agreed to at my full potential, and then just bop up to that 100% until I finish that project, and then I can go back down to my 80%.
A question for Scarlett. So as artists, like some of the artists, we're wanting to do certain projects. So let's say we bring it up and there's an organization we want to do it with. There is grant money to help us get paid to do the thing with like a nonprofit or something, correct?
So yeah, the collaborative grant is probably going to be the easiest one. That's a project driven one. It'll open in October, but it allows 2 different nonprofit organizations to work together on an art program or project. So the GetSmART program that you see all around town, we funded that. It will require so what you should do, you'd have to be in the background, but if you can connect 2 different nonprofit organizations, it opens you for that grant. And they most likely have the funding for the match for that. And it also depends on, when you're looking at grants, what kind of match you have and what it is your project is. For example, if you are in the African-American community and you are an African-American creative who wants to create a historical mural or something like that, you might consider a different grant through the Black History Commission, because there's no match required. It's a rolling deadline. So we do have some of those, including in the Veterans Program underneath the Arts Council. So knowing what you want to do and who you want to do it with is pretty instrumental, which is basically networking. All of our grants are on our website at arkansasarts.org. 'Arts.org. 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 'Arts And you might just look them over, and then if you have questions, you can reach out to me personally, or I can direct you to some of the people who are over those particular kinds of programs. I don't want to keep.
I was gonna add something there, Scarlett. From my own experience, because I spend a lot of time in my own headspace on what I want to create. You want to get in those spaces early. And the smartest way I found is I look for events that they're hosting, and I attend a couple of their events before I go in and I ask for a meeting. And that way they're like, hey, I've seen you before. And it's like, you're already part of the community that they're serving. So yeah, if it opens in October, I
Part
would
of
kind
that.
Yeah.
Right, but part of that, like Veronica is on our Arts on Tour roster, and that's for performing artists. So that helps her connect different entities that want to hire her with grants. And we also have one for teaching artists, which I put in the chat. So if you're interested in teaching in schools or bringing your artwork to nursing homes or veterans hospitals, anything like that, you would want to be on that roster, and that roster is open for applications right now through June 19th. And the person in charge of that is Matt Boyce. But if that's the kind of program, that's, again, it's like Arts on Tour, but it's for teaching artists or artists to go into schools under contract and do demonstrations or teaching or work with kids, residencies, boys and girls schools, those kinds of things. We work with libraries. And again, veterans is one of the most underserved areas. And so there's no match requirement, and that one's open all the time. That one also doesn't require you to be on the roster. So that's one of the few grants that we have that is that flexible and open.
And movement's really helpful for veterans because it has that connection in there. I think somebody was asking about how to get on the Arts on Tour roster. When does that open up?
I don't think that opens up till this fall.
Okay.
Yeah. But
you can go ahead and view the information and go ahead and start putting stuff together. Because
Matt Boyce is in charge of that one too.
Yeah.
So
the art and education ends on June 19th or opens?
Like, that's the deadline for applying. It's open right now. So if you want to be on the roster, if you're an artist who wants to get into that particular venue, now is the time to apply. Or if you don't feel like your application is quite ready, it usually opens up every 6 months. So you can reach out to Matt Boyce, and he can give you tips on how to get yourself to that area where you can start doing that. So like a lot of our facilitators are on the arts and education roster. Kai Coggin, I don't know if you guys know her, but she's a poet out of Hot Springs. She is. And then again, on the Arts on Tour, there are a lot of local creatives that are using that, and including like performance work. So, and I like dance, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all visual works. And for the veterans, it's not just performing arts. We've also had writers come in to talk about how to do their memoir writing. We've had saxophonists come in to talk about songwriting. So it can be a varied kind of program. So it just depends on who you're collaborating with and your network and how your application goes. So anyway. No, to apply, you need to go to the Arkansas Arts Council's website. So www.arkansasarts.org. If you have questions or want tips on how to succeed in this, you should contact Matt Boyce, who's over that program. Yeah, you're still going to have to apply online. It'll still have to be the application through our website, but he can help you with any questions that you have. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm in the process of reapplying because that whole I missed a step. So a tip on that is when you're make sure that you are selecting specifically the age that's appropriate for the content that you're submitting. Does that make sense? I think it does.
Okay. Well, I've already kept Veronica for like 10 minutes. So, and so if I'm going to just wrap up here, thank you again for coming. And I really appreciate it. We'll send out the link probably tomorrow and you can review anything you want. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, everybody. Oh, and
Thank you
share
for
the
joining us.
information you got. Share the information you got with others.
Thank y'all for joining us.